Hi, Wes Scott from Lifeback Law Firm. Today we're going to talk about filing bankruptcy separately from your spouse in Minnesota, what you need to know. Just because you are married, excuse me, does not mean that you have to file a bankruptcy, a joint bankruptcy. You don't. In fact, a lot of times we see couples where one spouse has brought debt into the marriage from their past, and they need to get rid of it to move on from their past. And so it's not unusual for us to have one person file a bankruptcy and not their spouse. Now, with that said, when that happens, the spouse, non-filing spouse, is not filing bankruptcy. It does not negatively affect your non-filing spouse's credit. Now, if you have joint debts together, you just want to make sure the joint debts are current. Whether you file bankruptcy or not, as long as you're current on a joint debt, it doesn't affect the other person's credit. What affects the other person's credit is when the joint debt goes delinquent. That's a problem. But it's not unusual for us to have one person, one spouse file a bankruptcy. A lot of times it makes sense. Sometimes it does not. Sometimes I'll tell people, because the thinking is, well, we want to save somebody's credit. Well, I get that. And that's an admirable goal, except if your spouse has $50,000 in credit card debt, even if they're current on that debt, even if their credit score is high, they might want to file. And here's why. We get a lot of people who say to us, we're current on everything. Our credit score is high. We file bankruptcies for a lot of people whose credit scores are in the high 700s. Why? Because they don't have good credit. But you just told me their credit score is in the high 700s. I know, right? But when you ask these people, could you get credit right now? Most of the time it's no. Sometimes it's yes, but the interest would be tickled upwards. But a lot of times it's just no, I can't get it. Or they see the freight train coming. They know that this juggling act is about to be over with. Look, I do encourage couples sometimes when there's debt on both parties to do a joint bankruptcy. Getting rid of debt is a positive event when the time is right. When you are ready to get your life back, reach out to Lifeback Law Firm. You're going to be so thankful you did.